Hi everyone, I'm Jeff. I get a lot of people ask me what the differences are between a longbow and a recurve bow. People will contact me and say, well, they want to buy their first bow. Should they buy a longbow or should they buy a recurve? What's the difference? So I thought I might take this opportunity to go over some of the differences between the two of them, some of the pros and cons. But you know, when it's all said and done, I think both bows are equally good to use. I started out on with a recurve bow about 39 years ago shooting. I learned myself how to shoot. It was a 45-pound Bear Minuteman takedown bow, 60 inches long, and it was a really nice bow to shoot. Anyway, many people will say that a longbow is more forgiving to shoot than a recurve bow. One of the things that you'll find is when you look at, this is my kid's 40-pound Bear Montana longbow, and when you look at the limbs, first thing you do is you find out how thin they are. They're really thin in width-wise. Now if I compare it to my Bear Grizzly, this is a 55-pound Grizzly, and you'll see the width difference. They're enormous comparatively, especially in the tips. The tips are a lot wider. Okay. Now, if I turn the bows sideways, another thing you'll quickly notice is how wide the longbow is and how thick the longbow is compared to the recurve. The recurve is very narrow and wide, and the longbow is very stocky and almost square. And this is a 55-pound recurve versus a 45-pound or 40-pound longbow. If this were a 55-pound longbow, it would even be thicker here. Okay. So what does that do? What advantage or disadvantage does that have? Well, in shooting a bow, if you're not releasing well, and your release is unstable, and you're torquing the string. If you're torquing the string at all in your release, with a recurve bow, you can actually twist the limbs or torque the limbs. You can see how easily it is for me to actually twist these limbs, the tips. Okay, so that can throw your shot off. If you don't have a proper release and you end up twisting or grabbing the string wrong, you can actually twist that limb when you fire. If I look at this longbow, I can't twist this limb no matter what I do to try. It's just the design, the way it's built. So that alleviates that problem. Okay. An interesting thing that I noticed, Bear had sent me this Kodiak bow that they reintroduced. It's a reintroduction of the 59 Kodiak, which they had many years ago, and it's a really nice bow to shoot, as are these other two. But one of the things I noticed immediately is the limb design. If I compare it to my 55-pound Grizzly, you'll see again that the limbs are so much more narrow, especially at the tip. And the tip, it actually reminds me of the same, it's pretty much the same size as the longbow. Okay. So in a way, what I'm seeing with this bow is it's almost like to me it feels like a recurve longbow hybrid, because it is thicker. Even when I hold it up sideways, both of these bows are 55 pounds, but you can see how much thicker the Kodiak limb is compared to the Grizzly limb, and it's not near as wide. Okay, so to me it seems almost like it's a longbow hybrid, which kind of makes sense because back in the 50s, the bows that were produced back then, the primary bow was the longbow in the 40s and 30s. And recurves were just starting to come into their own. And so, you know, this would be like one of the first types of recurves that Bear had introduced. So it kind of makes sense that it's got longbow style to it and longbow features, but it makes it a very good bow to shoot. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting fact. Another factor which helps in shooting with a longbow, go away, Jenny, is its length. Being 64 inches long, as this bow is, when you draw it back and you hold, you'll see the string on my fingers. Okay? There's not much of an angle of the string on my fingers. So that means that that string has a better opportunity to slide off my fingers more easily and smoothly. Okay? The shorter the bow, the more the angle of the string on your fingers. If I grab my son's old compound bow that he first started shooting many years ago, I can demonstrate, being a short bow, when this bow is drawn, you can see the pinch on my fingers here in the angles. That's going to make any finger release a lot more difficult, because now you have more friction on those ends of the fingers. That's why when you see compound shooters, and most compound bows are like 32 to 35 inch axle to axle, which is very short. That's why you see compound shooters using a release as opposed to fingers. That and the fact that they're only holding 12-15 pounds because of the let off. But having a longer bow means you have a more forgiving release, because that string has a better opportunity to slide off your fingers smoothly instead of having a violent release. Okay. Now, recurves, you can also get recurve bows in 64 inch, 66 inch, just like a longbow. I'd love to get one of the new Super Kodiaks, the grading green ones in 64 inch, in 35 pounds for practicing. That would be a wonderful bow to shoot and practice with. But with a recurve bow, you can also get it in, I think the Super Mag's 48 inches. And so, you know, that takes a lot more skill to shoot if your release isn't that good. The most important thing is to release and follow through when shooting. Anyway, those are a couple of the things a couple of reasons why they figure that longbows are a little bit more forgiving to shoot. One of the big advantages of a recurve is that they tend to be a faster shooting bow. And again, that's because of the limb design. Okay, you've got more power in the tips of the limbs here, and that transfers to arrow speed. That just makes a faster arrow, lower trajectory, easier to shoot. Another thing that is a big advantage I find for a recurve for hunting is, you see the difference in height. That can be a big difference in when you've got a tree limb over your head, or like we ground hunt here at home, and you know, we're constantly having to figure out, find a place to shoot where we don't have tree branches and things in our way. If I look at a bow, like my son wants to get a 52 inch Kodiak Magnum, and that would be lovely to shoot in a blind, being so short. Because I know that with the longer bow, you know, you tend to hit branches easier, you tend to make more noise, more movement, things like that when you're deer hunting. So that's another big advantage to a recurve, is its compactability and maneuverability when you're out hunting. But like I mentioned before, you know, both a recurve and a longbow are great to work with. I personally think I could, you know, go out and cut a sapling and attach baler twine to it, and I could still shoot. It all boils down to your form, your technique, and your release and your follow through. If you haven't got those down, no amount of forgiveness is going to help you when you're shooting badly. You know, a bow is a bow, and it'll only shoot with how well your form is working and how well you manage those difficulties with your release. That's the most important thing. But the other thing you'll notice with this Montana longbow is the handle compared to the recurve. The recurve has more of a pistol grip, and the longbow has a straight grip. And so when I'm shooting the Montana, I'm tending to put heel pressure right through here. Now I'll do the same thing with the recurve, but it actually just puts your hand in a little different position. It's just something to get used to, and it's very easy to get used to. Both handles are really nice to hold and really nice to work with. But like I said, you know, if you don't have a good release, it doesn't matter really what kind of bow you shoot. You're not going to shoot as well as you could. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I hope I was able to answer some of those questions. And regardless of what kind of bow you like, good shooting. Okay.